All right, guys, welcome back to the Week 14 edition of the Fantasy Football Stock Report. These are the guys to avoid video for this week. Again, if you haven't checked out the 5 to Ride video, I mentioned in the open that now I can record longer than 15 minutes thanks to all your guys' views and encouragement. So I can go a little bit longer now on more detail on these guys. So I might not do the Facebook notes anymore. We'll see. If you guys like it, though, let me know and if you want me to keep doing them. And again, I will try to respond to as many questions and comments as I can. I tend to be a little late sometimes because I've been so busy with work. But please let me know if you have any questions or comments regarding that. Okay? So the guys that I am worried about this week a little bit. Quarterbacks. You probably can't afford to sit this guy unless you have better options. But I'm a little worried for the matchup this week. He's going to New England, and that's Matt Schaub of Houston. I'm a little, just a little bit worried on him. It's at New England. It's always tough to play there. I know Houston's been great all year, but he had 20 fantasy points last week. I don't know whether or not he'll reach that this week unless Houston gets really hot and can keep up with that New England offense in this game. So I can only treat Schaub as maybe a number 2 quarterback option this week, just for the fact that it is a tough matchup. I base a lot of these projections off of matchups, how hot they've been lately, how not. So really, that's kind of the way I see Matt Schaub this week, more of a number 2 guy. Chad Henne of Jacksonville going up against the Jets. The Jets' D has actually really started to kind of come around lately. Now, granted, they did play the Cardinals last week, which any defense could do well against the Cardinals right now at this point. But they actually have started to play a little bit better since the debacle against New England. And Jacksonville really didn't look exactly fresh last week against Buffalo either. So, Henne can still play well. I mean, but for this matchup, because of what's happened lately, I can only look at Henne as a number 2, number 3 option this week. Granted, he's still got his weapons to throw to. He's doing well getting the ball to Cecil Shorts and, towards Justin Blackmon completely had a donut last week. He did nothing last week after his breakout week last week, so I don't know where Justin Blackmon now is going to fall going forward, but definitely Cecil Shorts is going to be a guy you can put in every week. But for this matchup, number 2, number 3 guy. Nick Foles of Philadelphia. Andy Reid announced that he's going to be the starter now in Philly for the rest of the season. That's probably a pretty smart move considering where Philly's at. Is that to keep Michael Vick healthy the rest of the way, healthy for next season? Is it just because they've given up on the year and can't really do anything else? I don't know, but whichever way you slice it, Philly is bad, and I'm just not sold yet on Foles being a consistent fantasy producer yet. I don't see that right now just yet. So give him another week, see what happens. He did have 16 fantasy points last week, but is he a guy really trust going forward? Not so sure on that yet. So I can only look at Foles right now as a number 2, number 3 option this week for the Tampa Bay matchup, just based on the fact that I'm just not sure where I am on him yet. Sam Bradford of the Rams, really tricky with him. Granted, it's a great match. It was going up against Buffalo, but the thing that has me worried is that, Bradford has not had his number 1 weapon. Danny Amendola has been either not productive because he's still dealing with that foot heel injury, or he's been out. And if he doesn't have that main weapon, he's really kind of struggled lately as a result of that. Granted, yeah, he has Chris Gibbons has kind of stepped up in his place, but that's it. Brandon Gibson hasn't done much. Brian Quick hasn't done much of anything. So really, there's not a whole lot of upside here for Bradford. So I can only really see him as a number 2 this week. I don't really would recommend really fully starting him. Just kind of temper expectations on him because I don't think he's going to be a big-time option. And then the other guy, Ryan Tannehill of Miami. Again, the matchup is tough. They're going up against San Francisco, which is a tough matchup in and of itself. B, he's inconsistent. He's been probably one of the worst rookies of the year, and worst is kind of a lucrative term here because he's had his moments, again, where he's had big days, but, again, really inconsistent. And he just lost probably his best pass protector in Jake Long for this season, so that screams yikes. I can only see Tannehill as a desperate number 3 play. Running backs that I don't like this week. Again, I mentioned the Patriots running backs last week because the kind of the muddled mess they were in with Ridley and Vereen. Um, but Ridley did have the most points. He had 13 points last week. But again, going up against that Texans D, you can probably ill afford to sit Stevan Ridley. But again, considering that matchup going up against that Texans D, I'm just a little bit worried on him. I can only see Ridley as a number 2 option with some upside though, because he does tend to get the bulk of the work in New England, but a little bit worried on him. James Starks of Green Bay, for those of you who were owning him, he is likely going to land on IR last I checked due to a knee injury that he suffered last week. The Green Bay situation now gets kind of a little bit muddled because Alex Green and Ryan Grant, the team re-signed, the Pack re-signed Ryan Grant. So they're going to give him a second look, which when he was the starter in Green Bay, he was an elite fantasy option. And now time has probably changed this because he has to overcome some injury issues. Granted, what Packers running back hasn't had to overcome injury issues in the last few years? So Alex Green and Ryan Grant are probably going to split carries in a timeshare until they figure out which one is going to get the bulk of the work. For now, again, I'd avoid it altogether. But if you want to lean on one guy right now, you're probably going to lean on Green because they want to get Grant back in the mold, see how he fits in. Then again, he might go off right away. Who knows? But I think for now, Green is the safer bet. But you can safely drop James Starks in the majority of leagues. Alfred Morris of the Redskins going up against Baltimore. The Baltimore D has been tougher of late. They've been more stout. They're getting back up there to where they need to be. Haven't given up a whole lot of late since that midseason slump that they were in because of all the injury concerns. And also, I don't like Alf this week because, again, we've seen RG3 do a lot of the rushing work lately as well, being that dual-threat quarterback that he is. And so he does take away some of Morris's carries and his work. So I can only view Morris as maybe a number 2 option this week against the Ravens. I think it's definitely going to be a shootout kind of game. We've been impressed how Washington's offense has been lately, but Baltimore's no pushover either. So I can only view Alf as a number 2 this week based on the matchup. Sean Green of the Jets, don't be fooled by the matchup this week. It's Jacksonville. He's still been inconsistent all year. I think he's still hair poor to the extreme. He's still losing goal line carries to Bilal Powell. Just not that consistent. Just not that good. I mean, can we say it? The Jets aren't that good. I mean, really? Kind of on the same boat as the Eagles. I mean, we were expecting big things from them, and now they've kind of completely fallen off and laid extreme eggs. I mean, that's basically what it has been for the Jets and Eagles this season. So I can only view him still as a number 2, number 3 option this week against the Jags. And again, I could be wrong. He might go Buku off, but who knows? So just be wary in case that does happen. And finally, again, Saints running backs going up against the Giants. I think obviously the Giants running backs, you could probably start Ahmad Bradshaw as a number 2 guy, but the Saints running back situation is just so messy. Is it going to be Darren Sproles? Is it going to be Pierre Thomas? Is it going to be Mark Ingram? Is it going to be Chris Ivory? We don't know. And that's, again, as I mentioned on here before, when you don't know who's going to get the bulk of the work, it frustrates fantasy owners. Why, Saints? Why do you have 4 running backs in your backfield to get playing time? Why? That absolutely makes no sense. It makes no sense to me or you or anybody. So, again, plus, I think this game is just going to be pass happy. This is Drew Brees against Eli Manning. It is going to be pass, push to pass button, A button on the Xbox. You get where I'm coming from here. It's going to be, hut, hike, throw the ball downfield. That's just the way I think it's going to be. So, Saints running backs, as they say in Boston, forget about it. You're not playing them. Because you just don't know. You just don't know. You don't know who's going to get the work. Nothing more than desperate number 3s is the way I see them. If I had to rate them, because I'm sure someone's going to ask me, how are you going to rate them? I'd probably rate them Sproles, Thomas, Ingram, Ivory. That's the way I'd rate them. That's probably not the way it's been rated all season. So now they're all healthy again. So that's the way I'd rate them. Wide receivers that I don't like. And some of these guys, are kind of looking at them and saying, oh my gosh, I should pick these guys up. Wait a minute. Rod Streeter of Oakland. You look at his 15 fantasy points and say, oh my gosh, 15 fantasy points, I need to get him now. Da, 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 da. Hold on. He only had 4 targets last week. Only 4. I understand Carson Palmer likes to throw the ball a lot, but he's got more. He's got Hayward Bay. He's got Myers. Streeter is far, far behind on the depth chart. So please leave him on waivers. Don't race to pick him up. He's far behind. Only had 4 targets with a touchdown. Let him be. Another guy you want to let be on waivers is Lester Jean of Houston. Please don't be fooled. He only had 1 catch. 1 catch. 1 for the long touchdown last week. And everyone's saying, oh my gosh, gotta get Lester Jean. Da, 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 da. Please don't be fooled by that. Please, okay? He only had the 1 catch. Leave him on waivers. He's behind Andre Johnson. And that's it. I mean, everyone in Houston is behind Andre Johnson pretty much. So please don't be fooled by him. Leave him on waiver. I hate saying this next one because I drafted this guy to be one of my top wide receivers this year, and he has been nothing but sometimes hair puller extreme. I hate to say him, but Miles Austin. And I know the injuries have been a part of it. I know he's dealt with the hip issue, the hamstring issues, different things. But my word, I was expecting so much more out of him. I hate to finally put him on the avoid list, but I feel like I have to because, and granted, I know he had a touchdown last week and there was some concern over the hip, but he had 10 fantasy points, whatever. But I have guys with far better matchups this week than Miles Austin that I'm starting over him. And I know Cincinnati is, it's a tough matchup. Also, the secondary is better. Guys that I picked up off the waiver wire are outperforming Miles Austin, a guy I drafted. It's pretty sad when you draft a guy to be one of your strong talents and you're getting guys off the wire that have been better than him. That's really what's stunning and makes you take a look back at your draft and say, what was I thinking? So Miles Austin, I drop him down to a number 2, number 3 this week considering the matchup. You might not be able to sit Miles Austin considering what you have at receiver, but I have matchups with far better guys this week that I'm starting over Miles Austin. I'm starting Pierre Garcon. I'm starting Josh Gordon. So, there's guys with far better matchups. So, I worry about him this week. I really do, based on the slump that he's had. James Jones of Green Bay. Don't like him this week. They're against Detroit. Detroit's D not exactly stellar. They just got destroyed by the Colts last week. But here's the thing. Greg Jennings is back in Green Bay. He's starting to get more involved in the offense again. But here's another thing now. Now that Jennings is back, but Jordy Nelson got hurt last week. He suffered a hamstring injury last week. That usually tends to take receivers out for at least a couple weeks, as we've seen in the past. So if he misses time, if Nelson misses time, James Jones could still be a pretty decent number 2, number 3. So monitor that situation with Jordy Nelson, see if he's playing or not this week. And if not, maybe James Jones makes for a decent number 2, number 3 plug-in for your lineups this week. And finally, Brian Hartline. Gosh, what happened to you? I mean, now you have an inconsistent quarterback. Your running backs, you don't know if it's Reggie Bush or Daniel Thomas. You lose your best offensive lineman for the season. Poor Brian Hartline. At this point, the guy should just not be on any fantasy roster. Seriously. Don't touch him. He went off one, and I know, and I, raise your hand if we all went, oh my God, when Brian Hartline went off. I did. I panicked. I got the guy, and he completely fell off the cliff. I mean, it just completely went off the cliff, like the coyote and the Roadrunner. I mean, it's just completely just boom, just gone in a puff of smoke. That was Brian Hartline. Just completely disappeared. Not even worth a look. He's going up against the Niners. They're going to shut him down. Don't do it. Tight ends this week that I don't like. I might miss on this one because he is getting more involved in Carolina's offense, but Greg Olsen going up against Atlanta, I don't know. I just fear tough going for him this week. I feel like, Carolina's, they're going to have to throw, obviously, to keep up with Atlanta, but I see more doses of Steve Smith. I see more doses of the running backs getting involved. If Brandon LaFell plays, maybe he gets more involved, but who knows. But I see him as more of a number 2 this week. Kind of hard to tell on him. Again, the tough match on this next one, Aaron Hernandez in New England going up against Houston. You probably, again, can't send him, but the only reason that I'm dropping him down to a number 2 this week is because of the tough matchup with the Texans. But again, you could probably ill afford to sit him if you don't have better tight end options, which they're probably not a whole lot out there at this point. Then don't sit Aaron Hernandez. But I only temper expectations on him this week because of the tough matchup. Again, another guy who shouldn't go crazy over, Jeff Cumberland of the Jets. He had 8 fantasy points last week, and he's going up against Jacksonville, but still too inconsistent for my liking. Plus, Dustin Keller's still the starter at the Jets, so you want to leave him on waivers. Brent Selleck, again, Eagles. You're playing with fire, really, if you start any Eagle besides Bryce Brown. So, at this point, desperate number 3 option. And Jermichael Finley of Green Bay, kind of a surprising name to mention here, but until he snaps out of this funk that he's been in, I'm really content with leaving him on the avoid list. He's just been so bad this year. Not a reliable option at all. I mean, it's mostly been doses of Jordy Nelson, of James Jones, of Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb is outplaying Jermichael Finley, for gosh sake. So, again, until he snaps out of it, I'm content to leave him on the avoid list. Nothing more than a number 2, number 3 option this week for you this week. And the wild card, real quick. Again, Titans. Titans wide receivers against the Colts. Granted, normally it's a great matchup, but gosh, the Titans offense. Besides Chris Johnson, I don't know who to play. I don't know if you want to play these guys. I don't know if you should play Jake Locker. I don't know if you should play, you've got, who've got? Kenny Britt, Nate Washington, Damian Williams, all these receivers. Again, this muddled receiving core. The problem, though, is there's no clear-cut number 1 guy. There never has been. If there's one, the closest thing, it's Kenny Britt. But the only question mark is when he's healthy. So it's a risk. It's a risk across the board if you play any of these guys. It's a desperate number 3 option because there's never been a clear number 1 that has emerged in that Titans offense. So just kind of temper expectations with all those guys. All right, guys, that's it for this week, for Week 14. Hopefully, again, if your playoffs are either starting this week or making this final week for the playoff stretch, I hope you guys come through this week. Hope we all get wins and hope we all get to where we want to be. If our season ends this week because of a bad record, hopefully you can look back on it and look back at the good moments this season and work better to get prepared for next season as well. Sometimes we don't get it right all the time. Fantasy football is a fickle game. It is hard to predict. It is kind of hard to dissect and figure out, but we can only look at what the information has in front of us, look at the numbers, look at all the different things, and make decisions. So every decision matters, every decision counts, and hopefully you guys make the right decisions this week for a victory. Again, feel free to leave me any comments or questions. I will try to get to as many as I can for the week for the Sunday game start. Don't forget Denver, Oakland tonight on Thursday Night Football. You want to start your offensive players. Maybe except for Moreno and McFadden, more number 2 guys, but definitely start everybody else. I think this is going to be a pass-happy game. Good luck, guys, and we'll do it all again next week. Take care.